to the TTS Talking Early Years podcast. Each week, we'll be joined by educational experts from across the globe, offering exclusive insights, inspiration, and guidance to help practitioners unlock the potential for learning in the early years. Hello, my name is Ruth-Quee, your host for this week's TTS Talking Early Years podcast. I'm an educational consultant, also known as My Mummy Teacher, founder of MMT Play, and passionate about inclusion and play in early years. Throughout this series, we'll be discussing a range of topics aimed at supporting SEN in the early years, inspiring you with guidance and resources to enhance your practice. I'm delighted to introduce Andre Imich as today's guest.
It's lovely to be here, and just in terms of my background, I've been a teacher in primary and secondary schools. I've been an educational psychologist. I've been a leader in local authorities and a professional advisor in the Department for Education in terms of special education needs and disability. I've always had, like you, a passion about early years. Whenever I've had opportunities, I've taken them to engage with early years children and done lots of home visiting in my time, as well as meeting parents of children under 5 and running training courses for under 5 practitioners. So I'm really delighted to have this opportunity to talk to you a bit more about early years.
Amazing. And I've enjoyed all our conversations that we've had already. It's some really good thought-provoking moments and also some really great practical tips for all of our practitioners and teachers out there. So thank you for that. In this episode, we're going to be discussing the complexities of supporting different types of SEN, where a child may have more than one special educational need. So how, within your experience, how common do you feel that is this something that you see quite often, or what's your experience of children having co-occurring SEN?
Yes, well, I mean, it's interesting because the department collects data from schools and recognised early years settings on the type of special educational need that a child has. And the school or setting is allowed to list more than one type of special educational need if they feel that the child does have more than one type of special educational need. And almost every child has at least 2 types of special educational need that is in the tick box from the school or setting. So there's certainly very few children that are regarded by their setting as having a single type of special educational need. And in a way, you can understand that if you've got a particular need in a particular area, you're likely to have 1 or 2 or 3 other presenting issues. So, for example, your primary need might be hearing impairment. Let's take that. So you've got a hearing impaired need, and clearly there are sort of adaptations and equipment issues around that. You will almost certainly have speech and language developmental issues. And also, a lot of children with hearing impairment have often present with challenging behaviours because they find it frustrating that others don't always understand what they're trying to communicate about. And so it's possible that a single child who has got a hearing impairment might be regarded as having co-occurring other types of needs that are understandable in relation to their developmental profile. Autism, for example, is another issue. I mean, autism is a sort of almost catch-all for speech and language difficulties, social communication difficulties, social interaction issues. So autism has co-occurring types of needs. So it's always interesting because a diagnosis of autism might be a sort of general help in understanding what the issues are that face that child and the type of intervention that's needed. But it's very general because there are going to be associated types of special educational need that require more targeted intervention. So the general diagnosis is a helping starting point, but one needs to look in more detail at what are the actual needs that are presenting? What are the co-occurring issues that need to be addressed?
Absolutely. I think we talk about some, like on the round of about their primary needs. So what's their primary need, and then we've obviously got all their additional needs as well, that you've spoken about. And I think this is one thing that we're both clearly very passionate about, is however that need presents, it's our duty and it's our job to absolutely meet that need. And
Yes.
so regardless of which need it is that you're focusing on, if it's their primary need or if it's a co-occurring need. And we know that for many of our specific learning difficulties, they do have recognised overlaps with others, like you have just said. It's our
Yes.
duty to try and meet all those needs that our children are going to be presenting with when they come into our settings as well. And what you also just touched upon then is, we can say that a child is autistic, but that will look very different for another child. So it's
Exactly.
really important to understand that these children are, regardless of their diagnosis, again, they're so individual and unique. So we can't
Mm.
treat them all the same anyway, and that's the same when they're within our early year settings. So what sort of strategies would you provide to any of our practitioners? Maybe perhaps some sort of general strategies that you just think are really, really good ones to sort of have in your armour tool, that are going to be general ones that will sort of help children with a variety of specific learning difficulties. They may have ADHD, they may have autism, they might have anxiety. But there's typical things that I quite often like to use the phrase, yes, it's essential for our children with special needs, but it's going to benefit all children. What are
I was
those
just going
sorts of
to
things?
say that.
Great
Yes, I
one.
mean, I was going to say we need to keep on hanging on to the sort of clear evidence that's what's good for children with special educational needs is good for all children. So we need to keep on reminding ourselves of that, and remembering that actually sort of orderly environments, predictable environments are particularly good for children with special educational needs. But they're also good for all children. Knowing where they are, knowing what's coming next, and so on is really critical. And that's sort of true for all types of needs, not just individual or co-occurring needs. So having a predictable environment, having predictable responses to children, and so on. The way that one talks to children needs to be one of encouragement, particularly in the early years. I mean, I might say actually for all children, but in the early years, encouragement and so on, and not drawing mistakes or errors or developmental issues to the attention of the child is another really important strategy. But clearly, for children with co-occurring different types of needs, and particularly the more severe they are as they get older in the early years setting, drawing in practitioners and communicating with other professionals is going to be really paramount. Firstly, I'm sure everyone's aware of the role of the early years SENCO, an important source of advice and support in most local areas. So try to avail oneself of that. Most local authorities also have early years specialist teaching teams. They may be running training courses. Make sure that your setting knows what training is being provided locally and accesses that. You never know when the particular area, subject area, might be of use to your setting. So that's another key strategy as a sort of system. Make sure that we're taking opportunities to be trained and developed. But communicating with other professionals is paramount, and also keeping good records of children's development is another really important feature.
Yeah, I just agree with all of those, and I'd add on the sorts of things that all comes into your quality first teaching, those things that you're going to do day in, day out within your
Yes.
environment. And it can just be really simple things like making sure that curriculum that you're providing is a developmentally appropriate curriculum that's a responsive learning environment, so that you adapt your teaching or that provision that you're giving those children to their communication, to their
Yes.
engagement attempts, and getting down to their level. Like, so often I feel like we expect children to come into the adults world, but actually our role as practitioners, we want to get into their world. We want to see where they are. Having little mindset shifts like that can have a really big impact on supporting these children's needs that they're going to be presenting. And another one that's just sort of sticking in the top of my mind is repetition. Don't
Oh,
be
yes.
afraid to repeat things. Like, many children
Mm.
have difficulties generalizing new skills to new environments. So they need repetition. Repetition to consolidate a skill is absolutely critical for these children across a
Mm.
wide range of experiences. We don't just do it once and that's it. We need to give these children multiple opportunities to repeat the same thing in different contexts.
And recognizing that a particular skill can be done or taught in different ways.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a very simple adult example is how to tie a tie for people who wear ties. There are different ways. Different people have taught me different ways of how to do that, but they achieve the same goal. We all have different learning styles, and there are often different ways to achieve the same goal. So trying different methods for children who seem to struggle with a particular method, adapting your teaching is what you're saying, Ruth, is something that should be sort of everyday stuff in settings.
Absolutely. And one thing that I bang on about a lot is the need for multisensory learning. And actually,
Exactly.
in early years, we are really good at doing this. And it's something that I think fades out as children go up into school, that we need to bring in more. But multisensory learning and having that opportunity to explore and learn whatever it is in a variety of different ways, utilising all of our senses, is so key to our children with special educational needs, because we don't know how
Yes.
they're going to learn best. Just because I learn best in one way doesn't mean they are. And actually, if they're doing it, if they're holding it, if they're manipulating it, they're more likely to retain it and remember it
Yes.
anyway as well. So one big strategy that I would say, a really great takeaway that I'd like you to have from this, is to play more and make sure you are utilising basic strategies. Like, don't be afraid to repeat things, and
Yeah.
don't be afraid to ensure children are having opportunities in a variety of different ways to meet those different needs that those children will have.
Absolutely agree, Ruth. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to say a huge thank you for joining me again
Okay.
today for this episode, and I look
Thank
forward
you.
to talking again soon. I would like to say a huge thank you to our guest, Andre, for joining us and providing such valuable insights. You've been listening to the TTS Talking Early Years podcast with me, Ruth Lue-Quee, and Andre Imich. If you've been inspired by our conversation today, don't forget you can sign up via the link in our episode notes to be the first to hear about future episodes and access exclusive follow-up content, including ideas for your setting and links to relevant resources.